Hello, Husker Nation. Back for another episode of Generation Red. It's Ken. It's Scott. Nebraska finally exorcised the demons. Not this time, Colorado. You've never had a 3-game winning streak against Nebraska, and it ain't starting this year because we toasted that ass 28-10, baby. Welcome back. Thanks so much for watching tonight. We are the Kettle Corn of Herd at Sports podcast because we try to keep things sweet, but at times we get salty. I'm pretty sure the stadium was really salty last night. I can only imagine how much fun that would have been. Unfortunately, we couldn't be there. We had to hang out at home. So, yeah, it was a win. It was a great win. I am your host, Ken.
And I am your other host, Scott.
We are completely winging this one tonight, folks, other than the outline that we're going to sort of semi-try to follow. And we've got some slides for you as usual. We're going to recap the Colorado game and do a small preview of NIU next week. But before we do that, first and foremost, make sure you're following us here on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. Also, leave this video a like and leave a comment if you're watching this show after it goes live. But if you're watching live now, please participate in the live chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we go along. The podcast can be found on any podcast app. This live stream will release, the audio will release tomorrow morning, right around 8:30 usually is when it drops. And that is by searching for Generation Red on your favorite podcast app. Like, subscribe, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Helps folks find us. And let's see what else. Oh, one more announcement. It's the saddest one of them all. Just due to reasons beyond our control, we had to cancel the Generation Red charity golf scramble. It's just one of those things. It's pending a reschedule for the summer of 2025. Maybe it will be charity. Maybe it'll just be a golf outing that we will do. I still have Grant Wistrom's signed autographed jersey. He has made that available for me to keep, for me to send and donate to another charity or even auction it off myself, which I plan to do something with it. I'm not going to keep it. I plan to do something with it to help raise some money. So that's the sad part. But hey, we move on. Hopefully we can get something together next summer, have some fun, play some golf, all that good stuff. Thanks so much for watching tonight. We really appreciate all of you guys. Moonbot was already in the chat when we got here. Coach BA was already in the chat. So unlike Hale Varsity, we have a starting 2, not a starting 5. So Coach BA and Mr. Moonbot, they are the tandem in the middle. And I guess you and I, Scott, are ball handlers. I don't know. That sounded weird, right?
Handling balls.
Handling balls. Do we have anybody else in the chat? Let's take a look. We got Casey Johnson. I'm not sure if Mr. Johnson, if you have been in the chat before, but thank you for joining us tonight. I see that offense stalled, yes, but key penalties, calls, and game in hand led to more vanilla play calls. I agree. I believe Coach Rule kind of said the same thing on the field after the game. Right from the start, we'll just say it because I'm sure everybody has seen it. Scott made it known to me over text while we were kind of doing some show planning earlier today. Nebraska is ranked for the first time since 2019. They're ranked 23rd in the AP poll and 24th in the coaches polls. Scott, with all the attrition in the top 10 yesterday between Michigan and Notre Dame getting beat by a giant killer named NIU, we're familiar. How do you feel about going into week 3 with a ranking?
Well, I can't remember if I sent this to you or if I typed it out and then decided to just not say it. But I was honestly hoping that they didn't rank us. Just because I really wanted to just give our guys more time to just exercise more demons. And this gives them another demon to exercise. Because I mean, it's something to be ranked. It's another thing to be ranked for the first time in 5 years. And then it's another thing to be ranked going into I don't want to say a formidable FCS opponent, but Northern Iowa is, I wouldn't say a slouch.
No.
I don't know if they're going to be a challenge, but they could definitely give us a headache or two if we're not careful. If we go into this game relaxed, thinking, oh, we're ranked, we We beat the brakes off of and broke the arms of the Colorado Buffaloes. I was just kind of like, I hope they don't rank us, but that as soon as it came out, of course, the Kool-Aid started flowing. I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so exciting. Because I believe we
Mhm.
deserve it. I think if any voters in the Associated Press or the coaches poll were watching that game, they would realize that the score could have been much, much worse.
Yeah.
The discrepancy between Colorado and Nebraska, definitely the eye test was definitely a much larger gap between the two versus the scoreboard only beating them by 18 points. I just got to say, it feels good to say that we only beat them by 18 points. Good feeling right there. I will not take that for granted, Husker Nation.
Nope.
My goodness. But yes, we're ranked. We're top 25 ranked, and that means that if we can keep holding on to this and
Mhm.
we don't stumble against a Rutgers or a Purdue or an Indiana or an Illinois, I mean, there's a very, very good chance that we are a top 15 or hell, depending on how the top 10 matchups go in these upcoming weeks. I mean, there's a possibility that Nebraska could be ranked in the top 10 going into Ohio State. So we'll see. Don't want to
How
get too over my skis here, but that's a
Yeah.
really exciting thing to think about.
Well, how crazy would that be to be going into Columbus with a top 10 ranking, especially, you got just 8 years ago, Nebraska goes into Wisconsin with a top 10 rating, does everything they could to win the game, a screwed up referee call at the end in overtime, loses the game for Nebraska, and then they go to Columbus. I think they were still in top 15 at that time, and they just get absolutely whacked 62-3. That was the Tommy Armstrong game, right, where he
Yep.
gets hit in the head and he goes to the hospital, and then you see him running back on the field. Great moral victory, but it didn't do anything really to help the team, unfortunately. Riker
Yep.
Fife, ouch. So yeah, I love the idea of being ranked. I love the idea of being ranked with a team like you and I coming in who loves to play spoiler. So that tells me that there's a good chance this next week that you could see some little bit of adversity here and there. Maybe they cause a couple turnovers. Maybe they play out of their minds and it's close at half. But as we'll talk about, we did look back at our predictions that we made back on our episode 106 on our Rule 8 versus reality show. And we're going to kind of update that later when we get to talking about you and I. But it was a great game yesterday, not only for getting ranked, but also was a lot of killer recruits in town. I was really hoping, folks, tonight the plan was to have Justin Adams from Nebraska at the Voice of College Football actually in the studio. He was in town for the Colorado game. Just couldn't make it work. Logistics just weren't there to make that happen. So
Shout out,
otherwise, we could
Justin.
have thank you, Justin, for at least giving it a shot and seeing if you can make it work. We really appreciate it. But what's interesting is that, you have guys like Michael Terry in town. You had guys like, I don't know if David Sanders maybe popped
That's
back
what I
in
meant
just for
to.
kicks and giggles.
That's what I meant
I
to
just
look up.
I didn't really look at a complete list of recruits because recruiting is just not my forte. I don't pay that much attention, but I should in that case because it was Colorado. It was a huge game. It was a crazy crowd. And apparently, my guess is we get a commit or two sometime in the next week.
I think
Um,
so.
and
I
that would
think
be a
so.
good thing.
Dang it.
So,
It's all every time, every article I'm
yeah.
looking to see what recruits actually showed up. They're behind a paywall. Boo.
Mm.
No, I think the recruiting aspect, because that was the thing that I think as long as Nebraska was competitive, there
Mhm.
was positivity for a recruit to observe. Because if we're competitive with Colorado, under the lights, night game, good vibes, all that jazz. I mean, we have so much to offer here at Nebraska, especially when
Mhm.
it comes to the upside of our offense with Dylan Raiola being our starter for these upcoming seasons. And then the upside of our Black Shirts defense. It doesn't matter what side of the football you are there for as a recruit. There was just so much to be observed as long as we were at minimum competitive. But considering the results of the game, I think we left a really, really good impression on these guys, and hopefully we can We can get, what's his name? Cortez Mills or something like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe Michael Terry and a bunch of
think
other guys. Like if we
wasn't
can,
Dawson Merritt in town too, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
I've
so.
seen
There
a
was a bunch of
picture
good
of
ones. I
them
meant to save
with Dylan.
the image that I had. I think I have it on my phone, but I don't want to go looking for it right now. But just of all of the recruits that were potentially coming in.
Yeah.
It just bode well for Nebraska as a whole to have that kind of impression
Mhm.
that you were able to leave, especially from what I've heard.
Oop.
From what I've heard, it's the best showing for a sustainable crowd atmosphere since 2014 Miami. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yep, gosh, what it was even as quiet as it was on NBC, and it was, you could tell they were having a hard time talking over the crowd. You could hear it in their voice. So, and I know there was a lot of people that were commenting on social media that it was really hard to hear the radio call with Greg Sharp and Damon Benning because it was just so dang loud.
I should have just
So
watched the game with
yeah,
the radio call. It's
I
just
should
so
have too.
hard. It's just
Yep,
so hard because
get it synced.
yeah,
Yeah, because you've gotta pause one or the other to figure out how long, and yeah, it was like the radio call was almost a full commercial ahead of YouTube TV. It was crazy. So,
yeah.
Moonbot says he was right on Dowdell getting the first rushing TD. Not necessarily in that game, he meant of the season. BA Coach's show. There's a lot of cranky old men on Facebook that owe Dowdell an apology. He balled out. Um, and the coach is one of those. He's got that coach's thought. He's always thinking like a coach. And the one thing coaches have a hard time with is know-it-all fans like us. So hopefully we don't, down the road, become one of those cranky old men that BA's got to call out. So,
Please do if we
um,
become that.
yeah, please do.
If
Absolutely.
only you were here. If only you were here last year to curb
Mhm.
my pitchforks and torches for Satterfield.
My
Um,
hashtag fire sat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
But anyway,
but you know what though? We really appreciate the, having BA involved with our show now because we're going to have some clips of video that go directly along with how we're recapping the game later. So we're kind of on the same wavelength with them, which tells me we're learning something, and that's kind of cool. But as awesome and as hyped and as great it was to see Dowdell play well, see the defense just go crazy, especially in that first half. The referees, man, we can't really get into the recap without talking about the referees because as bad as, which we'll kind of cover NBC a little bit here in a minute, but I did appreciate the guy that they went to whenever there's a questionable call. And he seemed to be about 50-50 on whether or not Nebraska should have been called for some of those holds and whether they shouldn't. For example, Ramir Johnson's 69-yard touchdown run shouldn't have been a hold, according to him. It was basically a pancake block where the dude fell forward instead of getting knocked on his tail. So anyway, I don't know. Were you as we were? Shoot, your mom was cursing. She was getting so pissed off at the refs, and that's not normal. So it had to be bad.
yeah, it was just egregious the amount that they were throwing for. I would
Mhm.
say the majority of them, 60-70% of them were just blatantly unnecessary.
Yeah.
They were subjective type of things where it's like you could have been throwing if you're really trying to be consistent here, you could have been throwing those flags all night long against Colorado. All night.
Mhm.
Most of the holding calls. There were a few holding calls that I was like, "Yep, that's a hold. That's on us. We totally screwed that one
Yeah.
up." But there were just so many petty calls that I'm just like, just
Yeah.
let the damn dudes play. Like it
Mhm.
was like I know it's like a common theme that Nebraska fans feel like they get shafted by refs, and in all reality, we do get shafted by the refs, at least from my perspective, more regularly than I ever
Mm.
see other games when I'm watching other games.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I sit there and just watch the yellow banner popping up all damn game.
Right.
Um, is it because we're just lacking discipline? I mean, in years past, yes.
Sure.
Um, but currently, I just think that we probably played a pretty clean game. They were just being petty. And yes, it was a frustrating sight to see, especially considering that we should have at least 14 points more on the board than we did at the end of the game, just from 2 petty calls.
Yep. I
And
agree.
yeah,
It was bad.
and then just I don't know what the announcers and what the analyst guy was seeing with that sideline catch that
That was awful. Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was like there was no catch. Yes, it was touching his hands with his foot
But there
still
was no
in bounds,
control.
but
Yeah.
there was no control. If you watched it in half speed, you could see he was bobbling it until he got it kind of wrapped up around his bicep. And before he even got it to his bicep, it was still kind of bumping around. It's like, I don't know what camera angles that they get to see when they are when they're announcing. They probably have different prompters than what we do. They have multiple prompters is what I mean. They get to see what we see on live TV, but then they have multiple screens that kind of give them a more robust view of the game. But it's like, whatever. It just was
it was frustrating. That one was like, you were watching that and you're like, how do they even need to review this? Why would you, unless there's skin in the game for the refs and the announcers, God, they must have bet Colorado to cover. They were actively cheerleading, especially in the booth, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But that was pretty much, referees were just, I'm tired of talking about them, quite frankly. I wish we could just know that we're going to get a decent game. And when I heard it was a Big 12 crew, I just knew it was coming. And with Colt McCoy in the booth, of course he thinks the dude's foot was in bounds. He also thought there was an extra second left on the clock in that Big 12 championship game too. So not to bring up any PTSD for anybody, but I think we could just kind of jump into the recap. We're going to do it a little bit different tonight, folks. Usually we throw some slides up there with stats and things like that basically everybody else does. Media does this, all the other fan podcasts that are good, they throw stats up there. They make sure you know all the ins and outs. We've decided we're a father and son. We kind of do things differently. We look at things through a different lens. And we thought, why not take a look back at this game and pick out 3 specific takeaways that each one of us are going to take from the game, whether it's a play or a moment or whatever. So we've got 3 of those each, and we're going to go through them and intersperse through those. Coach BA, being the awesome dude that he is, made sure that he got us some video clips that goes right along with our recap, but without even knowing what we were going to talk about. So funny how that works. So we're going to do that. But before we do that, just in case somebody who's watching this right now has not seen the hype up that Will Compton did before the game started, I am going to share that here real quick so that you can see that, get you hyped up for let's see here. Share screen. There we go. Will Compton. Boom. Also share tab audio. Got it. Hey, I remembered this time. So here we go. You seeing that? I'm hoping.
No, I gotta add it.
Remember that feeling after Boulder, Colorado last year? It's been 5,034 days since we beat the Buffalo. That is tonight. This year, we write our own script. This year, they're in our fucking house. They brought their cute little Louis bags, and we brought the greatest fans in college football. Tonight, I need to feel you. Black shirts, when they touch the rock, I need to feel you. In offense, through air, land, and sea, I need to feel you. Lock the gates on these boys and just know you got 90,000 recalling back. Go Big Red! Now go knock the fucking numbers off of somebody's chest and give me 4 quarters of smash mouth football. TikTok, motherfuckers.
That's great.
That was so cool. They've cut the you heard TikTok in the stadium. I saw the stadium feed, and then he cut the MFers off the end, which was great, I suppose. But that would have been even, that place went nuts when he said "Go Big Red." It was deafening what I could hear. So that was cool. I thought that would get us all hyped up for our recap. So we've got 3 takeaways tonight that Scott and I each came up with. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit ago, Scott, specifically as it relates to the game crew on TV. I'm just going to throw this slide up here, and I hope it goes kind of along with the points that you texted me earlier. But there we go. That's the first takeaway.
Yes. So to those who are listening, the NBC broadcast sucked. Just from everything, production quality, the audio quality, the camera work, the announcers. It just seemed like we were watching a Division II local broadcast for a football game with 2 camera angles, and that's it. Like, there was just so many dumb, like, neutral camera angles that needed to be switched. Whoever was in the video production room was just freaking sleeping. His buddy from Colorado must have brought him a fat bag of weed, and they were just stoned all freaking night. And yeah, just like I was sitting there, I didn't realize it was Colt McCoy because I was cooking dinner all the way up until about 5 minutes before kickoff. And so I had to sit down and like just shovel food in my fat, disgusting face before kickoff. And so I didn't know who was doing what or whatever. I just showed up basically at kickoff. That was when I sat down and started eating food. And so I had no idea until like, I don't even know, halfway through the game. It was either just before halftime or just after halftime. I was like, who is this dingus? And then I was just like scrolling on Facebook. Oh, it would have been after halftime because I was on Facebook and I just kept seeing Colt McCoy, Colt McCoy, Colt McCoy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was Colt McCoy. The monotone, like, has literally no enthusiasm, is stumbling over his words, is like not properly synced up with the video that is actually being broadcasted and is making comments on videos that aren't actually playing for us viewers. And it was just like, oh, it's the guy with CTE who has his memory basically scrambled eggs from Ndamukong Suh 2009.
Yeah.
And yeah, and they were just sucking so much Colorado PP the whole time. It was never like I don't really remember them going on a long monologue about how Matt Rule is building this program and based on what they see on the field, they can see it's going in the right direction. Like, that's something you should have been saying as an announcer. And I never heard it once. All I heard was prime this, prime that. Wow, Colorado, they definitely could get back in this game. All they have to do is these things, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm annoyed by announcers every so often. Like, I feel like people generally are more annoyed than I am. Like, I can tolerate a lot of announcer BS. And there's a few announcers, I won't name names, that I just can't stand. By a few, I do mean just a couple. There's like just two of them that from my memory, I just don't like them no matter what game it is. And this was just one of those that I was so frustrated. I was just frustrated. Like, I just kind of turned the TV down after a little while, which that I got to say this before I forget. Anytime I've watched games, let me know if you guys feel the same way. But if I'm watching a game, let's say it's a Penn State whiteout, or a marquee top 5 showdown between Alabama and LSU, or Alabama and Georgia, or something crazy like that. I don't know about you, but I feel like the production team is like, you know what we should do? We should have microphones that actually properly account for the atmosphere. Like, I don't know, the crowd being loud. When I was watching it on TV, when I had the TV turned up, like, the crowd sounded so muted. It just sounded like a little,
Mhm.
And like it just let me down. It was like there's so much hype around this game, and it just felt like a Thursday evening FCS to Group of 5 showdown production quality. It was so terrible, and it just kind of it just like it just kind of
Mhm.
like took the overall hype of the game down a notch, which was just a
Yeah.
travesty.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wasn't huge on it either. Your mom was like, "God, these people are annoying," and it just was, and it just the reviews and the fact that they seem to be pretty slanted in favor, and the fact that they didn't even point out that on the very first run that Dylan made to get the first down, he was hit dead in the crown with the crown of the helmet, dead in the ear hole. Not a flag, not a review. You saw Rule losing his mind on the sidelines. It was just, it almost seemed like the whole night was skewed toward continuing to promote the prime nostalgia, the fact that Colorado is going to be back because they've got all this star power on the sidelines, not just in the uniforms, but in the coaching headsets too. Warren Sapp, those guys. And so, yeah, it was just frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. So I'll move on to my first take here real quick. And mine is the fact that the defensive line played elite. And I think they are elite. All the defensive line black shirts. And I know we technically run a 3-man front, but they were running some 4 too. Ty, Nash, MJ, and Jamari, they all got sacks last night. You saw Vincent Shavers Jr. get a sack, technically not on the defensive line. And Prince William Monmielen got one as well. So Ty also knocked down a pass. He got a tackle for loss, and he blocked a field goal. I mean, he was plugging up everything in the middle. He and Nash both beat double teams on their sacks. Just basically split the guys and shoved them to the side. The strength that these guys have built over the offseason. Jamari Butler's a different player. He doesn't just have that quickness. He's got that explosiveness off the ball where he's driving his man back, even though his man probably outweighs him by 40 or 50. That's what I noticed last night. I thought I saw it pretty clearly against UTEP live in the stadium, but on TV, wow, the explosion off the ball that those guys have, and the fact that it looked to me like they held back a little bit in the second half. Like, they're not going to beat us. We know how to stop them. They're not going to beat us. Let's not try to hurt ourselves by going too crazy in the second half. And that maybe accounts for why they actually scored 10 points. But there you go. That's kind of my take. And I couldn't resist adding this picture to this slide as I saw that on Twitter this afternoon. And I had to grab it because, TikTok MFer, absolutely.
For those who are listening, it's Will Compton and his host, Taylor Lewan, standing with Dylan Raiola in the infamous Twitter photo that I'm sure if you're listening, you've probably seen floating around. Dylan Raiola's got a beautiful gold watch, flexing that ice, that bling. Just insulting the weakest ego in all of college football.
Yeah, the dude that had to walk off the field with 2 minutes left because he didn't want to have to shake hands.
Yeah, do have a little temper tantrum.
Yep.
My little feeties hurt.
It was fun watching that video on YouTube too of him catching lots of crap from Nebraska fans.
What time is it, Shador? What time is it?
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah, no, our defense looked good, and I just sit there and think about it. Is our defense looking this good because they are this good, or are they looking this good because offensively Colorado's just that bad? And
we'll find out.
We're gonna find out. But if I had to put money, I would say that Colorado was not that bad, and Nebraska was just that good. Yep. And my reasoning for that is I watch a lot of football, guys. I've watched a lot of elite SEC defenses, elite Big Ten defenses, the Iowas, the Michigan circa 2021, 2022, 2023 with star talent everywhere. I've watched them play some smaller schools and whatnot. And yeah, they play conservatively, but I didn't see I haven't seen that much regular, consistent pressure on a quarterback all damn night long like I saw last night. I mean, 6 sacks, 10 tackles for losses, and just the overall pressures that they were putting on Colorado. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was like watching I guess for me, I still haven't played NCAA 25 because I don't have a next gen console. So I'm just going to be waiting on either for when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and I have to get a next gen console, or it drops on PC at some point.
Yeah.
One of those days I'm going to get 25. But when I'd play NCAA 14 and you'd play on freshman difficulty and you would have your elite defense against, just whatever, a run of the mill team, like you're just back there sacking the quarterback, all the time. And that's what it looked like. It looked so good. Our defense looked pretty damn good. We'll see come up. Next week we'll see a little bit more. We'll get a 3-game kind of a context, but then once we get into our Big Ten slate, we'll really get to see what they look like for sure. But
we're gonna know more about that defensive front when they get up against some boys that are every bit as big, strong, and explosive. So, yep. Because Colorado, like Coach BA says, is terrible up front, like low level. FCS bad on the O-line. I think they have talent, Coach, and I think many people would agree. And I think Prime went out and got guys that he thought was experienced, and they could just make a mesh. But I think they could have played better if they had been playing together for 2 to 3 years instead of just shipping one line out and shipping a new one in. You can't win in college football with free agents, not when development is so much more important in college.
And you got to gel
up in the front.
Listening to Rob Zadiska talking about the pipeline and in 94 and so on and so forth, talking about how they just knew each other so well. They knew their tendencies. They knew their footwork patterns. They knew they would intuitively know just based on where they're at any given snap, like how wide their shoulders would feel to them, that they could just know how many inches they could move to the left or right in order to feel the guy to the left or the guy to their right. You're not going to get that when you constantly have a revolving door of offensive linemen like Prime seems to think is a sustainable model, which it's clear to me that Prime, this is my view on Prime real quick. He is a man who lives by the vibes and dies by the vibes.
Yep.
He is a motivator. He's a guy who can get into the psyche of his team, and he can create a lot of juice for his guys. But when it comes to the X's and O's and the archetypes of football, he doesn't have a gosh dang clue about any of that. That's his other coaches' jobs to figure out. So that's what I think of him. I think he's all hype. He likes his vibes. But if they ain't good vibes, then they ain't gonna play good football. So
it's hard to have good vibes when nobody's playing well. So there we go. There's your second takeaway. Go ahead.
My second takeaway is Dylan Raiola. What did we see from Dylan Raiola? Well, we saw that he is a game manager. He can handle himself under high pressure situations because I will give Colorado credit. They were getting some pressure on Dylan, especially in that second half. Their defense seemed to give our offense a little bit of a hard time every once in a while. And Dylan missed some throws. He overthrew a few guys. And it didn't seem to cause an implosion. It didn't seem to cause some sort of downward spiral. He just stayed composed and managed the game pretty well. And I think that if we've only seen him in 2 games so far, but if we're able to extrapolate that pattern, I think that it's pretty safe to say that we're going to win a lot of ball games with this guy running our offense. He just seems to be rock solid. Rock solid. Is he gonna win a Heisman this year? No, probably not. I think he's gonna be in the talk for a Heisman if he continues to play like this for his sophomore year. I think he's going to be one of those guys that is in a constant news cycle with every anchor on ESPN and all the other major sports networks. He's just going to constantly be clickbait for them, really. And yeah, I mean, he's living up to his hype.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Dylan myself. And in fact, not only was he's part of my second takeaway as well. And that would be this right here, that the offense, team had composure, and it starts at the top. It starts with guys like Dylan being able to do what needs to be done, execute the offense. Don't put your offense in a bad spot. Don't throw the ball where it shouldn't be thrown, even though Rimmer Johnson made such a huge play on what probably should have been an interception. One of the few times we've seen all season that Dylan puts the ball in a spot that could be dangerous. So, but yeah, it took what was given, and there's a specific play. Mr. Coach, our buddy Coach BA, gave us a play breakdown for Thomas Fidone. I have not seen these breakdowns yet, Coach. I apologize. I was so busy working on show prep that I'm literally going to see this for the first time, just like everybody who's watching is going to do. So here's Coach BA's breakdown of managing the offense and getting a key first down with tight end Thomas Fidone.
All right, Generation Red fans, this is the offensive play I want to show. This is one of my favorite plays we ran of the day. This is going to be this play right here. The reason I want to show you guys this is it shows how good the run game was working, and I want to be able to effectively show you guys how the run game set up the passing game, right? So Colorado, you can already see they walked up their 5 players right here. They walked up 5. Fidone right away does not get touched. This defensive end does not touch him. That is a huge problem. Number one, no. I was taught this when I was in like 6th grade playing defensive end outside linebacker. You cannot give a tight end, let alone a tight end like Fidone, a complete free shot without rerouting him. You got to get hands on him in some sort of way. You got to get hands on him. Okay, you see this safety right here. If you look right away, he's going to be playing deep, taking away everything in the field. And look at this open space right here. We got some open space right around this, especially with that drop. But I'll show you guys right now, we get a little bit more open space because with that play fake, look who's biting. Look who's biting. I love to point that out. Look at that bite. That linebacker bites, and then it's, oh, snap. But something else I want to point out. Here's who we're reading here. Here's not even who we're reading because this was an automatic read. Read was the wrong word. This is who we're trying to push. We're trying to put him in a bad position. Right here, the strong safety. Strong safety because he's lined up on the strong side run game, right? Strong side. Well, that means tight end. That's our run strength. And then also we got the backside, right? We're pushing. This is a great inside release by Banks. Great inside release. And now we're pushing vertical. See? We're pushing the strong safety vertical. If he has to drop. He has to drop. He has to drop. Has to. Because if he were to bite down on this, Jamal Banks would fly right by him. But look at this. Look what happens. Linebacker bites. We're pushing vertical. Big window for Thomas Fidone. Huge window for Thomas Fidone. Huge. Look at that. Look at all that open space, baby.
Huge.
All the open space. I'll play this in full speed for you. Generation Red, I love this, and this is why I'm showing you guys this play. It's just so you guys can see just how good the run game sets up our passing game, particularly with Thomas Fidone. Boom, baby. And broken tackle. This was just beautiful.
Yeah, so that pretty much lines up with what I was seeing. I was seeing Dylan just not put the ball in danger. I was seeing a lot of good scheme for sure. At moments, it looked like the guys were struggling to move the ball. And you know what? They've got scholarship players on the other side of the line too. And some of those guys made some plays. But I think this team could have scored 14 a quarter in the 3rd and 4th quarter if Sat would have just called the game like he had been. I think we could have got another defensive score because they would have really been pressing the ball downfield. There's a lot of things that could have happened in that game, and for some reason we went into some sort of shell in the 3rd quarter. but you can't knock Dylan for taking care of the ball. The defense also stayed focused when they were backed up like that. I think it was third quarter or third or fourth, or maybe early in the fourth. John Bullock made like 3 outstanding plays in a row to just stop what was going on. He knocked a pass down. He hit a tackler in the hole for a loss. I mean, the guy was just all over the field. So the defense stood up when it needed to. There was a lot of guys that contributed. There was 4, I believe I counted 4 or 5 people on the starting defense that had 6 tackles. So they're spreading the wealth. That offense was going all over the field, and all those guys were tackling in space.
Well,
and the bad penalties did not affect the team. They did not lose their composure no matter how many stupid flags were on the field. So that's my second take.
Yes.
Any thoughts there?
Well, I discussed this with you in our texting conversation we were having, that those who are listening, let's rewind here for a little bit. Let's take the mentality of 2022 Nebraska and think that there's 8.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We're down by 18 against this same Colorado team, which obviously wouldn't have existed in 2022. But 8.5 minutes for another team to score 18 points on Nebraska, 18 or more points on Nebraska. The way that things were looking, we couldn't get anything going for us on offense. We kept shooting ourselves in the foot with penalties. Let's just take it at face value. We were shooting ourselves in the foot with penalties. This is a team that has, from what I can see so far, has kind of pushed themselves past that voodoo shit.
Yeah.
We're cursed. We're going to screw this up. Somehow we're going to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. And we're going to find a way to screw this up. 8.5 minutes with an explosive offense like Colorado is, if Colorado would have not been so prima donna and not been so, I don't know, a bunch of weenies. They definitely had a chance there. I felt like, okay, if there's any chance for them to do anything, it's with the refs doing what they're doing and with us shooting ourselves in the foot with the play calling. And I mean, it doesn't take much for Colorado to put up some big plays. And yeah,
They never really did.
Never really did.
Never really did.
It felt like one of those, kind of like how we discussed it kind of at the UTEP game, where the first quarter was a little bit iffy. It was 7-7. They got an explosive play on us, but I never really felt like a here we go again moment like I felt like we've had for the past half decade, better half of that. It just felt nice knowing that, there's 8.5 minutes left. We're only up by 18, but I feel like we're gonna lock this game away, and it's ours to have.
And that's what Coach said at the end of the game. He said something to the effect of, we had some conservative calls there. Maybe we called a little too conservatively in the second half, but we weren't really worried with the way our defense was playing. And then he said, and apparently we had some penalties. I thought it was such a great way of saying, I think we had some penalties out there, and I'm not going to get fined because it's Big 12 refs, right? So I love Coach Rule. I think it's great. It's ready to go to your next take, which then we'll get to another Coach BA breakdown as well. So here's your third take. Tommy Hill's pick 6.
Yes, I think that Tommy Hill's pick 6 to put us up 14-0. I noticed a huge deflation. Those who were at the game, if there's anybody who's watching right now who are at the game, who are relatively near the Colorado bench, I only got to see what this dog crap NBC coverage was able to give me. But from what I could see, there were dudes who were just, at that point, they seemed like they gave up. it was, let's see, when was that? Let's see. Interception for a touchdown was
Mhm.
10 minutes into the first quarter.
Yeah.
We hadn't even made it to the second quarter yet. And we
Mhm.
had a pick six on the heralded Heisman favorite Shedeur Sanders, who was spoken so highly of all of this preseason, saying he only threw, was it 3 interceptions last year? He was
Mhm.
so dynamic and was so good with decision making. We instantly made him make the second interception of the year because I think he had one against North Dakota State, and then his second one against us is a pick six. And they just looked defeated on the sideline. They looked just the wind had been taken out of their sails. And it really was a defining moment of the game because Tommy Hill, this guy who almost left the team and had played multiple positions while here. He transferred in from, what was it, Arizona State, something like that.
Who?
Tommy Hill.
Tommy Hill. Yeah, I think so. Arizona State. Yeah.
It was one of those two. And he's just had such an up and down journey at Nebraska, and just having him have that moment
Mhm.
was incredible. And to just see the utter defeat on Shedeur Sanders' smug little face just made me so happy. Just made me so happy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as I said just a minute ago before you started talking, this is Coach BA's second breakdown play. He's also putting this play on his breakdowns on his channel. So make sure, folks, that you are subscribed to the BA Coach's channel. His channel has actually outgrown ours much quicker than we were able to grow to where we're at. So he's got some outstanding content that a lot of people are watching. You do not want to miss out on his breakdowns. There's not too many people who do it better, if there are any at all. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, before we play this, I just want to make a shout out to BG, Tennessee fan on the podcast, Tennessee Vols
Thank you.
fan, saying that he loves that we beat Colorado. Good luck for the rest of the season. Hey, Tennessee fan, BG, I think we both can agree that college football is a lot better when
Damn, Skippy.
Nebraska
and Tennessee are good.
When Nebraska and Tennessee are good. I hope
Completely
you
agree.
guys continue to climb up. You guys got a stellar quarterback, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Guys are looking
that would
good.
hurt.
You guys are looking good.
You can sprain your tongue. That, and it looks like they got a pretty stout defense as well. So,
Yep.
anyway, moving on. Let's jump into here's BA's breakdown of how Tommy Hill made that play happen and why Shedeur threw the ball, which I'm still not sure why.
All right, so you guys already know I have to show this defensive play. I have to. This has to be the defensive play of the week. We all know what happens here. This is obviously a fantastic play by future NFL player Tommy Hill. He makes a huge pick six that obviously blows this game up for us. But I want to highlight somebody who also made a really good play right here, and he had a fantastic day in pass coverage. I'll say it. John Bullock. John Bullock. This is going to be a pretty basic zone coverage here. He's going to have the hook zone right here. Tommy Hill's going to have the flats, but I have to be real with you. John Bullock proves me wrong here. I was very concerned about our linebackers playing our hook zones covering this middle portion of the field. I was worried that the speed, specifically from Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter, I was worried about it. And I'll admit I was wrong. John Bullock proved me wrong, okay? So what we're going to see here is with this hook zone from Travis Hunter, here's what he's looking for. If John Bullock just drops out like a lot of teams would do, if it's just a sit and drop, he's just going to sit right here, which he tries to do. He just sits. But if John Bullock crashes over, then it becomes a slant. It's basically kind of like a choice route, if you know what that is. It's not even really a choice route. I'm just trying to give that in terms. He's basically just trying to make a read here. He makes the read. You can see Travis Hunter is the primary read on this play. Travis Hunter is who they want to get the ball to 100%. If Bullock were to sit, he'd be getting the ball right now, but he crashes over, and that's what makes me nervous. As soon as he crashes over, boom, Travis Hunter's running a slant. This is what made me nervous. These are the plays that make me nervous because, look, yeah, we got Gifford. I think that's Gifford, but yeah, we got Gifford right here. We got open space right here, but look at John Bullock. Boom, look at that. Look at that. He stays with them, so that forces the throw. And Sanders just flips his hips and throws. And I have to say, this is a very dangerous throw. Shedeur Sanders in his post-game press conference said this was a rookie mistake. Some people think he was talking about the receiver. I'll tell you right now, I'll look into this camera and say, this is a rookie mistake from Shedeur Sanders. The only time I would ever say, look where they're at on the field. He's thrown to the wide side of the field, backed up in his own end zone. The only time I would ever suggest doing that is if Tommy Hill was like, I don't know, 7 yards off the ball, like 7, 8, like he's all the way back here, and then he just backpedals right away to all the way back here. Otherwise, why are you throwing this? Because look, Tommy Hill does a fantastic job identifying that the receiver sits. He identifies it right away, and he breaks. Hold on, did I take it off? No, I'm still on full screen. My bad. It just looks different. Boom. Look at the way he identifies it, takes it. That's like NFL level identification and tracking. He's tracking that thing before it's even thrown. He takes it right out of the air. And you guys already know. Big play. That, I'm telling you, you watch this game, the NFL scouts are looking at their chops. They're licking their lips with this kid. Tommy Hill. Boom. Boom.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. And again,
Coach.
just as a reminder, the BA Coaches Show on YouTube. Definitely give that a subscribe. And also the BA Coaches Show on your favorite podcast app, because he throws his podcast out there too. So thanks, BA, for that breakdown. Yeah, I would have never known that was John Bullock in that particular coverage. Looked from just looking at it on TV, my first thought was, oh, Isaac Gifford's out there. But then I saw him back in that strong safety spot, and I'm like, oh, duh, that would be Bullock, and he did an outstanding job all day long. Just was, I think Bullock in many ways for me is the MVP of the defense for certain. He just made so many plays, was where he needed to be, made some great tackles. Deshaun Singleton was headhunting, and it was fun to watch because if he hit somebody, they knew it. So that was enjoyable. Let's get to let's see here. Oops, clicked off the wrong thing. There we go. So my third takeaway is the future for Rahmir Johnson in this season, being a senior. This is it for him. What I saw out of him last night was a guy who's developing into a game breaker, a guy who could make plays. He turned what looked like a sure interception into an 18-yard touchdown. That was one of those plays too, Scott. You mentioned the voodoo thing, the idea that, oh crap, something bad's going to happen, because just as early as last year, that ball doesn't bounce in Rahmir's hands. That goes into Hunter's hands or whoever it was that was covering that play. So the ball's beginning to bounce the right way because we're making that happen. We're playing in a way that needs to be played. It was not lost on me that the guy leading him out of the tunnel, along with Dylan Raiola, was Bud Crawford.
Gang, gang, gang.
And Coach, I'd read it on Twitter or Facebook even, that he this last week he showed them Bud Crawford's fight against Errol Spence. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it was a methodical, slow execution.
Very slow burn.
It just was like, and then when he went in for the kill, he went in for the kill. That was that. It was just methodical. And he was like, that's how this game has to be played. And we were one bad holding call. It really was a bad holding call away from him being the 100-yard rusher in the game and having 2 total TDs. I can see that pitch play coming back again. I can see him playing some jet sweep, some expanded role in this offense. I'd love to see him and Dowdell on the field at the same time at some point in this conversation in the 2024 season. So that was my third takeaway was Rahmir Johnson. Absolutely love that kid.
Hey, I agree, Moonbot. He just posted this saying that the new Chasing 3 is going to be fire. Because I don't know if you saw that 28-minute episode post UTEP. Oh, dude, so much hype.
Beautiful.
And I didn't think about this, man. You actually just kind of highlighted it to me as, yes, you're right. The ball bouncing between both their hands, the defender's hands and Rahmir Johnson's hands, and then it just ends up in the right spot at the right time, and Rahmir gets it and runs in for a tutty. Like, those are those moments that we've been starving for. We've wanted those balls bouncing in our direction, because I can't even begin to tell you how many times, dozens upon dozens of times for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, where it just seems like the ball always goes in the other way.
Other way. Yep.
And I think that it is also one of those things that maybe I'm getting too into the weeds here, but I mean, if you are coached correctly and you know where you're supposed to be at the exact
Mhm.
time that you're supposed to be there, you are just increasing the likelihood of luck being better in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are people who make their own luck, and I think that you make a lot more luck for yourself when you're in the right places at the right time through fundamentally good football. And so we're just we better start getting used to this here, Husker
Yeah.
fans. Well, I don't know what this is, but we better get used to it.
Looking good.
All bouncing our way every once in a while is something we need to get used to. So
For sure.
no, that's something I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that I need to appreciate again, because it's always been the other way for so long.
Mhm.
It's like I don't even know what that feels like. That's what it felt like last night. To the point where I was like, I was
Weird.
holding the baby, and I'm like, honey, come in here, come in here. And she doesn't know much about football, but I was like, check this out, this is cool. And she's like, okay. And then they finally show the replay, and she's just like, dang, yeah, that was really cool. I was like, yeah, that was pretty sick.
For sure, for sure. You put this up a minute ago. The new Chasing 3 is going to be fire, and
Oh,
it's going to hit like crack. Oh my
That's
gosh,
going
that cracks
straight
me up.
into my veins, dude. Just straight into the veins.
There we go. Might be a guest on the show next week. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Absolutely.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Mythetics.
Yep. LOL, coach. Yeah. Yeah, gonna hit like that pipe. How would you know, coach? That's what I need to know. I want to know how you know that. So that pretty much wraps up our recap of the game. We decided, instead of doing offensive and defensive MVPs, we would just both pick our own just MVP for the whole game. So Scott and I both, I just got a slide for both of us here, and you all might be surprised as to who I picked. But there you go. Scott's got Dante Dowdell, for obvious reasons. 17 carries, 74 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. Longest run of 14 yards. I believe one of those was a TD. I don't remember. 2 TDs. And I've got Brian Buschini, 5 punts, 254 yards, average 50.8 yards per punt. His longest was 60 yards, and that's the one that set up the pick six by Hill. Buried him deep inside their 10.
Put a lot of pressure on him.
Put a lot of pressure on him. He was, for me, for my money, for the guy that put us in the best opportunity to win, it started with field position with Brian Buschini, and that just cranked up that defensive line. Tony Wyka gets so much more aggressive inside the 20 as opposed to outside the 30. At least that's my take on it. I don't know. Coach BA may have to tell me I'm wrong, but anyway, there you go. Those are the MVPs. Any thoughts specific to Dowdell and Buschini that you've got rattling around your brain?
Well, I had to pick Dowdell, because one, he was responsible for 50% of our points,
Yep.
and was our leading rusher. But more importantly, how cool is it that last week he got pulled out of the game midway through the first half because he fumbled the ball? And he was on a roll. He was on a roll. He was definitely going to get the very, very high stat line last week. And then he gets pulled from the game because our coaching staff actually falls through on their word. And then he gets a week to probably get his ass beat in practice for a little while and earn his stripes again, and then was given a second opportunity, and he proved himself. He gave himself all of the evidence the coaching staff needed to show that he can be our bell cow, and mistakes happen and they can be learned from. And from what I could tell, against Colorado's less than ideal defense, he still looked good. Good. I would have loved to see more out of him. But I mean, hey, no fumbles. We had no turnovers. Turnovers. We have had one turnover in 2 games, and we have generated what, 3 for
3.
ourselves?
Yeah, we're +3 right now. We've actually generated 4. So we had 2
Oh,
turnovers per game. So yeah, we're +3 right now in turnover margin. So
God, that
man,
feels
that
so
feels
good.
good, doesn't it?
That feels so good.
You know, it's no replacement for taking care of the football. It certainly helps. It certainly helps win some games, I would think. So there we go. That wraps up our game recap. A little bit different than what most everybody else is doing. And I think it works well for us because for us, we just love to talk about what we see. Diving too deep into the statistics doesn't help us much as far as being able to cover a game accurately because 9 times out of 10, we're not going to understand why the statistics are what they are. And having Coach BA help us out with some film and some concepts and things that we're not familiar with is going to help us do a better job as podcasters down the road. So we're going to do a quick preview of you and I, though. We're just right at an hour. We're not going to take too long to do this. We're going to quickly recap, take a look at just some key stats from both teams. There's the slide. That's the stat comparison. Nebraska and Northern Iowa are both 2-0. We're averaging 234.5 yards per game in passing. They're averaging 107, but they are averaging 298.5 yards per game, and we're only on the ground, and we're averaging 186, which is pretty dang good. 420 total for us in offensive yards, and they're averaging a total of 406. So I'm assuming they're a run-heavy option-style offense that we might have some trouble with. Maybe. We'll see. We're scoring 34 points per game. They're scoring 26. Key players on their team for me is the running back Ty Edwards, 157 yards per game average. He has 315 total all-purpose yards. And Dylan Raiola for Nebraska, averaging 211 yards per game through the air, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he's completing his passes at 73%. Turnover margin +3 for Nebraska. And 0. Either they've given it away twice and they've gotten it back twice or what, I don't know. I could not find those stats. I had to search and search just to find the ones that I did. So that's kind of the breakdowns between the two teams. Any thoughts on those there, Scott? Or did you happen to find anything else on Northern Iowa that I did not?
Nope. Unfortunately, I had no time to look up any sort of meaningful stats or nuances other than just it's you and I. They're in the Missouri something conference, Missouri Valley. I think let's see, isn't UTEP in that? No, North Dakota State. North Dakota State is in their same conference. UTEP is FBS. Yeah, so Colorado fans, UTEP is definitely probably a better team than North Dakota State. But anyway,
thank you, Ryan Martinez, for watching and commenting. Appreciate it very much. That's one of Amber and Andre's friends. So
yes, welcome to the stream, Ryan. And I do agree. I will just say, he said, I know we've said it for many years now, or I know we've said it for so many years now, but does this Husker team just feel different than other teams in the past? I agree that it feels like the voodoo stuff is behind us.
Yep.
Yes, I do agree. I feel like this team, not even just field, but what I see on the field is a different team. And going into Northern Iowa, we're gonna really get that 3-game sample size. Well, after Northern Iowa, we're going to be, I hate to say this, guys, but we're going to be a quarter of the way through our season. And so I just look at this team. They could give us a headache. But the thing that is nice to know is that if they are an option running style offense with their quarterback having 215 yards of rushing, and then their running back room having around 500-ish yards between the rest of them. If there's anything that last year's staff is going to be able to know how to coach, it's coaching against a running quarterback. And so I think we're prepared for it. And I'm just curious how we gel. How do we gel after being ranked, after coming off the high of beating the most insufferable fan base and football team known to mankind.
Yeah.
And like, are we going to continue to exercise these voodoo demons that
Yep.
seem to plague our team? I feel like we do. And Michael Hassman does point out a very, very good point that I would like to see improve this game with us playing our last, like, quote unquote, easy opponent, is special teams. He says special teams is a real concern. They seem to have everything else trending the right way. Yes, the thing that I guess we didn't really talk about, and I'll just briefly go over, is our reception defense. It seemed a little bit holy. Like, there just seemed to be too many gaps for talented skill players to exploit. And then just the elephant in the room, which is Alvano. I don't know what in the world I would do about him. I know that a few of our followers would just say, just put him on the bench. I don't know if that's the right decision. I think he's got a case. I think he's got a head case problem. I think he's stuck in his own head. The stage that he's being put on just seems to really affect his nerves. And is that something that can be coached out of? Like, is that something that can be coached out of him? Is that something that our staff, through psychological and structural means, can they actually work with him on that? I don't know. I just don't know if it can happen this year. If you had issues in your own stadium hitting a simple, yes, you're on the left hash mark as a right-handed kicker or right-footed kicker. Like, I don't wish that on people, but that should just be a given. That should be a given. That's a gimme. That's a gimme kick under 40 yards on the left hash mark. Who cares? You should hit that. But yeah, looking at this Northern Iowa team, this game coming up here, I'd like to see our special teams improve. I would like to see our playbook open up just a little bit, just to kind of see where we're at, really. Because I think we've discussed, I really don't think they did I didn't think they did too much razzle dazzle and too much play action rigmarole with Colorado, which I felt like they were going to, and they really didn't. So yes, Ryan, I think it's a different team.
Yep.
I think we are watching the birth of a new era. And it's going to be an exciting thing to see.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with your assessment of special teams and of Alvano. I'm kind of off the reservation with him right now. If they sat him down because John Hull is kicking better in practice, I'd have no problem with it. But at the same time, if Alvano's still outperforming them in practice, he just can't do it in prime time, then friggin' give Hull a shot with the lights on. Give him a shot. See what happens. And I have a feeling this next game, Hull's going to get a shot at a field goal. At least if we need to kick one, I have a feeling he's going to get a shot at one. So,
Coach, yes, I realized I misinterpreted my stats. I swear I filtered by rushing, and I did, but then I overlooked that the 215 yards were his passing yards. I thought I was looking in all rush yards, and so they're not really an option team. They are just a rush heavy team. They like to run the ball a lot.
Absolutely.
So everything I just said, completely disregard at least the concept of what team we're going to be facing. We're just going to be facing a rush heavy team, which basically is the same thing, just with
it goes right into our strength.
It goes right into
defense. So thanks, Michael Hassman, for the comments. Thank you for watching the stream. We really appreciate all you guys watching, interacting. This has been a lot of fun. We're going to go into and take a look back at episode 106. I'm not going to pull the video up or anything. You've watched enough extra video tonight. Kind of like to get out of here in the next few minutes, but there we go, from episode 106, which is Roulade versus Reality. If you have not seen that episode, it's available right here on YouTube. It's also available in your favorite podcast app to listen to audio. This is what we did. We did a Reality versus Roulade. If we're thinking realistically, what do we think Nebraska was going to do against UNI? Scott picked 44-10 in Reality and 44-10 in Roulade. I picked 35-17 for Reality and 42-17 for Roulade. So we thought, hey, let's update it. Do we think after 2 weeks of watching Nebraska play, is that going to change? And this is what we came up with for our new predictions. Go ahead, Scott.
So for my side, my reality score prediction is I think we do something like 42-6. It's 2 less points than what I had predicted preseason, but that was with my assumption that Alvano was going to make a significant or at least a reasonable jump from last year, which based on what I've seen so far, it doesn't seem like it. So at this point, my score predictions are going to be field goal-less until they can prove to me that it's something they can actually do. And when I'm thinking of this defense at UNI, I just don't see any reason why, if we are getting into field goal range, we can also get into the end zone. And if we don't, then we're probably missing the field goal anyway. So I'm thinking 42-6. It's 4 less points than my preseason prediction of what UNI would get on offense. And that's mostly just because this defense is looking a little bit better than I had hoped. And so realistically, they might make it down into the red zone a few times or down into our territory a few times at most. And they probably just walk away with 3 points because our Black Shirts defense looks like as the pressure amps up, they get even more salty. So, and then my Rule Aid pick is 49-0. And the reason is that if I'm thinking an excellent defensive performance, I see a defensive touchdown, and I don't see UNI scoring at all. I think we see a shutout. So if I'm drinking the Rule Aid, I think it's 49-0, a beautiful shutout, a great way to roll into Big Ten conference play, and we're just riding high on continuing to be ranked.
All righty. I can see that for certain. I have updated mine a little bit. I've got another 7 points on the board for Nebraska in the reality pick to 42, and then 7 points off the board for UNI, so 42-10. And that would have Nebraska have only given up 27 points total in their non-conference slate of games, which is pretty dang impressive. That's 9 points a game. Right on pace for being another top 10 defense. And if it's the Rule Aid side, I'm picking 56-3. The only reason they get 3 points is because we have, like, I don't know, the Water Boys playing on defense and late in the fourth quarter, and they actually can get down the field and kick a field goal because they have a kicker who can make one in Memorial Stadium. So
Must be nice.
Yeah, must be. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That'd be great.
Oh my goodness. Well, this was a fun show. There's nothing like covering a win, and there's especially nothing like this. Reminds me of covering 2022 Iowa when we went there and we absolutely pasted them for 3.5 quarters and then almost gave up the lead late in that game. But this was I think a little bit more fun because I don't technically hate Iowa, the team. I don't hate the coaching staff. I don't hate what they do. I just some of their fans drive me crazy. Now, the difference between them and Colorado is 90% of Colorado's fans are just ass nuggets. They're dingleberries. That's all they are. They think their stuff doesn't smell, and they're low information, high hype people, and that drives me nuts. So, anyway, this was fun for sure. Thanks everybody for watching. Are you back on? I know you popped on for a second last night, but are you maybe going to be making a few more sniping spots on Twitter here and there in the future? And if you do, where can they find you there?
Oh, yeah, no, don't bother with that. That was really just for Colorado. Colorado it inspired me to open up a browser, pull up Twitter, make a tweet real quick, misspell one word, and then close out of it and never to see it again. So don't worry about following me on Twitter. If you want to, you can follow me at ScottGenRedPod, but there's nothing really exciting going on there besides if you want to reminisce in the pain that was last year.
2021 through 2023.
I have a video on there of just like I think it was our game against Rutgers or something. I just had like a compilation of us turning over the football. And then my most recent tweet, which was basically just me saying, "Hey, I just got on Twitter just to say
Colorado.
yeah, go Big Red, screw Colorado, and Iowa's corn sucks." So
Yep, pretty
that
much.
was
Just
that
for
was all
old
I've been on
time's
there
sake,
for.
he was
And then back to my peace and quiet.
peace and quiet. So yeah, Michael Hassman says doesn't hate Iowa either. I do, however, hate Colorado, Miami, and Texas. I am 100%
That is
behind
true.
you. It was hard watching Texas win, but at the same time, having Michigan have come to them what they should have had coming to them a lot sooner, because son of a gun, cheaters never prosper. Imagine that. So anyway, that's that. We are done. You can follow the show at GenRedPod on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And of course, as I said earlier tonight, Generation Red in your favorite podcast app. GenRedPod.com is our website. Go there to listen to all of our past shows or watch all of our past videos from YouTube. And there's other stuff on there. You can leave us a rating and a review. You can read a little bit more about us, find out who we are when we started this podcast versus who we are now. So sort of changed a little bit. I'm going to have to update your bio on there, Scott, because there's like a third person in the house now, and I've completely forgot doing that. So, and I've got to update mine because now I have 4 grandkiddos. So, let's see here. What else? Next live stream is next Sunday at 7:30 p.m. The Northern Iowa recap. It will be in studio here for sure with probably 2 of my other sons who are not named Scott, and possibly a third. So stay tuned for that. It'll be an all-family affair, a Generation Red that'll be truly generational, and I will be outnumbered. So, yay me. We really appreciate you guys watching. This has been so much fun. I love covering wins. I love doing this podcast. I love the fact that you guys interact. I love that Coach BA has decided to help contribute to the show. But more than anything, I love Husker football. And for Scott and myself, thank you. We really appreciate all of you. We are Generation Red, and this show is here for the purpose of, well, following Nebraska's inevitable return to college football greatness, which may have just started on Saturday night. And we're doing that one podcast at a time because there is no place like Nebraska.
And Iowa's corn sucks more than Colorado's bone density.
And 2 busted forearms. That was some strong defense last night, that's for sure. Good one. Good one. All right, folks. We'll see you next week. Go Big Red. We'll talk to you soon.